let's have a chat about another senior minister, Jason Clare. Now, Clare, of course, is the education minister and thought to be a future leadership contender in the Labour Party, whose name is more than whispered these days, as even die-hard lefties writing in the pages of the Sydney Morning Herald ask the question, what is the point of the Albanese government? Now, Clare, who is personally a lovely guy, also represents the Western Sydney seat of Blaxland, where, according to the 2021 census, a large proportion of the population is second-generation Lebanese, and 31.7% of locals identify as Muslim, nearly 10 times proportion in Australia nationally. You see where this is going, right? I want to show you a bit of what Jason Clare told the ABC this morning, and then we can have a little chat about it.
For most of Australia, they see a war on the other side of the world. For my community, the people that we see images of dying on our TV screens are often family or friends. And they're asking for a little bit more compassion and a bit more understanding. They're asking for the killing to stop, for the slaughter to stop, for the starvation of children to stop. They're asking for a ceasefire and for the war to end, and I don't think that's too much to ask. Every country has a right to defend itself, but it also needs to comply with international law.
Is Israel complying with international law?
Well, the bombing of schools and the bombing of hospitals, I think, are not complying with international law.
Now, look, sure, I get it. War is hell, but let's not forget who started this thing. And it is true that an awful lot of civilians have lost their lives in the last year. Both Israelis who were deliberately targeted by Hamas on October 7, which is again how this whole thing started, as well as, of course, Palestinian civilians who have been used as human shields by their terrorist government. But do you see the problem with what Clare is saying here more broadly? He's taken up the cause as a federal minister of his constituents. And, I suppose that's fine as an MP, but what he's doing as a minister is he's taking up and talking in favor of a worldview that sees Israel as a war criminal, the devil, and which wants a ceasefire so that its terrorist enemies have a chance to regroup. Now, remember, a ceasefire only gives Hezbollah and all of Iran's other proxies, the Houthis, everybody else, time to lick their wounds, rearm, and then guess what? Start their war against Israel again at a time of their choosing. And the Albanese government's failure to provide moral clarity on this issue has not just encouraged calls for ceasefires, like what we just heard from Jason Clare, but also, I think, a complete breakdown of what is sometimes called social cohesion. But again, the problem with the progressive Albanese style of multiculturalism that we saw here is that it seeks to destroy any central anchor point for our society. I mean, that's what The Voice, which went down in a heap a year ago next Monday, was all about. Undermining the foundations of our nation and casting modern post-settlement Australia as something we should all feel bad about. That's what the government's multicultural framework review, which was also all about keeping us in our ethnic silos, even to the point of allowing new migrants to take citizenship tests in their old back home languages. Well, that's what that was all about. What it comes down to is dividing us for the sake of identity politics, but with, as we now see, increasingly disastrous results. Because, you see, you cannot have a successful multiculturalism unless there is a central national idea, an Australian dream, call it, that everyone still looks to. A positive, forward-looking vision for the country. And I don't think the progressive left, of which Albanese is a part and which breaks out in hives when it sees the flag, is capable of managing this.